Hey everyone, Dr. Dax here. Welcome to class, and thank you for tuning in to this recording of our WebEx session. I apologize for not having a live session. Hopefully by now you've gotten my email, which let you know that this week is a crazy week full of projects and meetings that I have all week. And so I'm unable to attend live at the regularly scheduled time, which I would normally have. So I'm pre-recording these, and I will upload them. The first one today, Tuesday, and the next one will be on Thursday, per the usual agreement. They just will not be live as they normally are. Thank you for your understanding and your patience during this time. So what I want to do today is we're going to have our regular session, and we'll go through a PowerPoint of information I wanted to share with you. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the deliverables that we've been getting. They've been in pretty good order so far. I do appreciate the writing quality and the Python and R scripting that you guys have been able to accomplish and provide. I would like to share with you a couple of ideas for exploratory data analysis and some shortcuts that you can use to clean up your code and kind of do things a little quicker and more efficiently, if that will help you. Now, some of you work in Python already or other scripting codes, and you're done programming and you've got a way of doing things, and that's fine. What I like to tell people is that in programming of any kind, there are always multiple ways of accomplishing the same thing. Boy, it's hot in here. Where I'm at, the air conditioning is out. That's project number 76. But anyway, what I'm going to do is share a couple of shortcuts that'll help you out, I think, and hopefully make future projects go a little quicker. And I'll share some scripting templates with you that you can use if you choose to do so. Without further ado, before I get started on the actual lesson, let me share that with you now. I'm going to go to the Python shell and scroll here a little bit, get past all of this. When I get that where you can see it. Okay, so the first thing I want to share with you is called Pandas profiling. What that does is it helps you to basically look at a data set in CSV format and create an output file in HTML, which creates some correlational visuals right away. So let's take a look at the one that we've already had in deliverable 1. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up for you. First we're going to work in pandas. So I'll do import pandas as PD. Go ahead and do that. And I'm going ahead and import pandas profiling. Now, if you've never installed pandas profiling, you'll have to do that. You'll be at the base level and you'll do a pip install pandas profiling like that, and it'll take a few minutes, but I've done that before, so I'm not going to go through that. I've done my import, and so that's in place. I'm going to go ahead and import NumPy. Okay, and I want to set up my data frame, so let's do this. df equals pd dot read underscore csv, and I've got that pulled up, I believe, and here. Just go ahead and copy what I've got. But I've got to change those backslashes to forward slashes because it'll kick out an error if I don't. And I know there's a shortcut to get rid of that, but I don't remember what it is. If one of you knows, please do share that with me and everyone else, because this is a pain in the rear end each time. And I'm going to close my quotes. Alright, so we've set up the data frame with the path, and now it's looking at our code, at our data set. Now, one thing that I didn't see anybody do really is do a describe. We could do a df.describe, and that will give you a lot of information right away. So let me see if I can, hopefully you can see that. Let me zoom in just a little bit. You should see the count of all the different columns. You can see the mean, the standard deviation, min, max, and so forth. And so you've already got some summary statistics right away. You didn't have to use R, although the instructions said in deliverable 1 to use R, so that's okay. In the future, if you can't use R to get those summary statistics and you want to use Python, df.describe is one way to do it. And let's go ahead and use Pandas profiling now. First, we're going to import profile report from Pandas profiling. So I do from Pandas profiling, import profile report, and then we're going to set up our function, call it PROF, you call it whatever you want to. F equals profile report, and we are using df for data frame. And once that is done, we can call on it to create the output. So what that's going to do is create an HTML file, and it's going to drop it into the same folder that you run Python from. So you set it up as your function .to underscore file, and then open up parentheses, call it output underscore file equals whatever you want to call it. We can call it output.html, and you'll see it build up, and it takes a few minutes, but it's well worth the wait. And this works with any CSV file. What it's going to do is take a look at all those columns and the names of the columns and create correlational data. It's going to look at Spearman correlation, all the different correlational possibilities, and it will do the different histograms. And so some of the information won't make any sense because we haven't done any cleanup whatsoever. We just took a raw data set and dropped it in right away. And so, like I said, it takes a couple of minutes for that to finish production. And once it happens, all we have to do is go to your folder, like I said, and mine's in the C drive under my name, under users, and then my name, and then it's in the same place where I run Python. Then you just double click on that HTML file, and it comes up in whatever application you automatically open HTML files with, and mine is Chrome, I believe. And so it's taking a minute. There it is, rendering HTML. Now once it's done, you'll see the greater than symbol pop up again. So let's go to the where is it? want to drop into that real quick. Hope that was helpful to you. The other thing that I'll share with you and I'll send in the upload is a link to my template, and I'll just show you that real quick. Like in Python. Let me zoom out so you can get a better look here. If you wanted to check the correlation, just looking at the numbers, not worrying about the visuals, you can do it like this. You can check correlation between sales and line it up with price each and see right there that there's a 0.65 correlation. Anything over 0.5 is correlation. The closer you get to 1, the stronger correlation. And we looked at earlier the month ID that we saw that there was a large order in certain months. So we look at month ID and look at quantity ordered. So there was a negative correlation there. Let's see, sales and order number. So here between month ID and quarter ID, well, that's a silly thing to correlate. Let's see, what else we got? Sales and price each. So it's a good way to do correlation. You can also do correlation between specific items. To the PowerPoint and get rolling there. It's going to be a short and sweet one. We're just going to be talking about data security today and basically what every in-house counsel needs to know about data security and privacy, managing the company's obligations under federal and state privacy and security laws. Our objectives, we'll be talking about data security, why it should be a priority, U.S. laws impacting security, and we'll discuss a template for providing privacy security legislation and preparing for a breach, cover safe harbor framework principles, and some software tools like NLTK library loading and implementation. We've actually touched on some of that, so time allowing, we might go into some of that. Let's see, data privacy and security. Why should it be a priority? Well, federal and state laws are increasing penalties. In recent years, we've seen a lot of problems with data security breaches. They've made the news many times, and because of that, we've seen a rise in the need to increase our security at the organizational level. Theft of consumer information is increasing, and government investigations are increasing. Private consumer litigation is on the rise, and it can harm your brand. Take a look at Sony, TJX, Heartland, other examples. There's tons of them out there. Attacks on systems are increasing. Consider the state-sponsored attacks from China, North Korea, and against Iran. Google says Chinese hackers broke into Gmail. The New York Stock Exchange suffered several incursions not long ago. WikiLeaks, and the list goes on and on. It's laws impacting data privacy and security. Federal and state laws governing data security are being dealt with, and they are increasing, and we're catching up with the rest of the world. Europe has already implemented some very strict laws, and we're getting closer, it's getting better. We are governing information such as what can be collected, how it must be stored and secured, and under what circumstances it can be shared. Under what circumstances it can be disclosed. Requirements for responding to data breaches and data losses, and penalties for data breaches and data losses. And that's without taking into account the international laws. Like I said, in Europe, they're ahead of us. Let's take a look at some of the U.S. laws. This is by no means comprehensive, but we've got the Administrative Procedure Act, Cable Communications Policy Act, Cable TV Privacy Act, Census Confidentiality Statute, and the list goes on. I won't read them all to you, but there are plenty of them, and this is by no means complete, but you can see that the concern is there, and it's very warranted. There are lots of issues out there with data security, either due to negligence or criminal activity, or people simply being careless. This is why more and more we're seeing whenever you visit a website, you go through all these permissions now in order to accomplish just about anything. So the basic template for the federal and state privacy laws. What we want to do is define the type of non-public personal information that is being regulated. We refer to that as NPI. We want to provide that NPI must be protected from disclosure to unauthorized holders unless anonymized or aggregated. We're actually dealing with some of that now in a project that I'm involved in academia. We are analyzing student performance, and it's a challenge because we want to do it at the surface level and see how students are doing in general, but it's important to not take out information that can identify students by name, so we have to remove aggregate information that can identify students or embarrass anyone or point out anyone's personal identification. It requires the development, implementation, maintenance, and monitoring of comprehensive written information and security programs. So what we do is we're interested in collecting only the necessary information and retain it only as long as needed, provide access only to those with a legitimate business purpose, and implement with specific administrative, physical, and electronic security measures to ensure protection. And it's important to require prompt notice to individuals whose NPI is compromised. And it seems like more and more we're getting notifications a couple times a year now. So privacy laws provide for the imposition of penalties for breaches by NPI custodians. And it requires the disposal of personal information in such a way that it cannot be read or reconstructed after disposal. So, what should we be doing about this in our industry? One thing we can do is assess the risk. Identify what is it and who should conduct it and how should it be conducted. To what degree should it be conducted? Who should perform a risk analysis, the gap analysis, and develop policies. Adopt a comprehensive personal information security policy. Addressing policies are needed and the role of in-house and outside counsel in their development. Additionally, we must employ education and training. We need to form an information security committee to implement any new policy and determine who should train corporate personnel and what role in-house counsel and house counsel plays in that process. Additionally, we need to be interested in responding appropriately if a breach should occur. We need to be able to answer questions like, what is in-house counsel's role in responding to a breach? And what notice do we provide to federal and state agencies, to those impacted by the breach? How can we mitigate such a breach? What is the role of notice and credit monitoring? And in a post-breach public statement, what key points should be included to minimize litigation risk? And while we're talking about litigation, to what extent can a company really be liable for lost data? Are companies 100% culpable? Are individuals and end users also responsible? And when we're talking about preparing for a breach, we should have an incident investigation and response crew. Depending on the size of the organization, this should be a given. Breach notification and resolution ought to be something that is built into our protocols. We need to be able to anticipate government investigations and possible litigation, as well as consumer litigation. Again, this is also a function of the size of the organization. If you're in a small 5 to 10 employee organization, probably not as big a deal. We must adopt a press and public relations strategy. Let's look at some common data breach scenarios. There are accidental breaches, things that happen due to negligence, something that's overlooked or forgotten. Faithless employees, ex-employees, somebody with an axe to grind. Hackers, thieves, organized crime. Enemy states, competitive espionage. Let's take a look at what a data breach looks like at the surface level. Basically, that company X, which is routed out to rogue employee B and rogue employee A. Now you've got somebody here that's got access to information who can actually share it in a variety of ways. Memory sticks is one, boxes of physical documents, company laptop, anything that can be shared either physically or over an ISP. And that can be sent to rogue employee A. Lots of different ways. So I mentioned earlier that the European Union was a bit stricter in their privacy directives, and it's true. Google the EU Directive 9546 EC. What you'll find is that it addresses the collection, use, processing, and free movement of personal data. The broad definition of personal data is pretty vague, and it includes any information relating to an identified or identifiable natural person. Each EU member state is required to enact implementing legislation. It also raises concerns for European-based companies, US-based companies that do global business, and for companies who provide services to companies who are subject to the directive. So even though we're in the States, we're actually impacted by the EU Privacy Directive. It impacts data controllers, data processors, all data transfers. So it's important to be familiar with that piece of legislation if you work at that level. Now, it's pretty exhaustive, but we'll look at some key points here. Basically, you've got data controllers, which are data collected for specific, explicit, and legitimate purposes that may not be in excess of what is needed for such purposes. Data must be accurate and up to date, and the data must not be kept in a form that permits identification of data subjects for any longer than is absolutely necessary. So let's look at what goes into an US-EU safe harbor framework. What we mean by that is safe harbor is what requires organizations to comply with the 7 data privacy principles. First of all, notice. We give notice to anyone that is impacted by a breach. We have choice. For example, when you go onto a website, you have a choice of having cookies monitored or not. You can opt in for sensitive information that can be disclosed to a third party, or that which may be used in a manner other than for the purpose of which it is originally collected. Or transfer, access, security, data integrity, and finally, enforcement. And so, Congress, in an ongoing effort, is focused on cybersecurity. The priorities for the 112th Congress from the GOP Technology Working Group: protect the U.S. from cyber attacks. It says that cyber attacks have the potential to bring down our nation's economy, expose our most sensitive information, and even seriously injure or kill American citizens. We will work to enact strong cybersecurity protections this Congress that focuses on increasing protections in an innovative manner that allows for dynamic solutions to this dynamic problem. So it's pretty straightforward, and it goes on from there, but I won't dwell on the politics of the situation. We just want to make sure that we understand that it's an ongoing battle. Okay? We're very interested in staying on top of the technology. Now, today we didn't go too far into the technical details. We went into more legislative and common sense material. But in our industry, it's important to be able to understand and speak the language of data science, data security, because we're going to be on the forefront of that. And even as time goes on, it's going to become more and more critical, because more and more data is being generated daily. More and more companies are interested in data analysis. All organizations, all industries are expressing interest in it, and our industry as a job is really growing and blowing up. And so with that comes the responsibility to perform the work in a manner that is legal, ethical, and morally acceptable. So we want to make sure that we're able to identify these laws both at the federal and state level, and your organization's local practices. So if there are any questions about any of that, if you have anything to add, shoot me a message. It's been a lot of fun, and I want to thank you for your time. This has been Dr. Jax. I'm going to call it a day for now, and I will send that information when this finishes uploading. And if there's anything that you need, let me know, and we'll address it next time around. I'll see you guys Thursday. Have a good week, and take care. Be safe out there. Bye-bye.